All right, hey guys, Sam back with you here. We're midday on a Thursday, March 15th, and the next coin up as per the voting that was requested from my members was for EOS to Bitcoin. Now, we've done this coin before. This is a favorite project. And I'll show you why here. So if we go over here to CoinGecko, where I like to reference these metric scores that they have here, so we can see, I mean, about as strong as they get. So 3.7 billion in the market cap, 73 on the score here, 88 amongst the development community. This is a major crypto. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a major player. So if you want to do some research, plenty of places to dig in here. You want to see what the buzz is in the development community? Well, have at it. It's right there for you. You want to be a trader? Well, where's the volume? That's the first question we want to look at. Well, we can see that the bulk of the volume is over on BitHum. They're taking almost 30% of it, trading to the Korean won, but that doesn't help us as much. We're looking to trade it against Bitcoin here. At least that, let me rephrase that. The members requested that I review it traded against Bitcoin. So the most volume that I can find for Bitcoin is on Binance. Happens to be where I'm trading it as well, so that's convenient. So if we come over here and we look at it, now there's some interesting things happening here. Now I've left a little bit of my work here because I didn't want to spoil it for you here. So we can look at this now. Here's where there's some subjectivity and some, we'll call it experience and some knowledge with regard to what the dominant forces are in the market here. What's pushing this? Now we can certainly put an Elliott count on this and try and organize it, but we certainly want to pay attention to what the algorithms are likely doing, the kind of pivots that they're most likely working with, and if we can tuck in behind them, try and get behind whatever they're doing. So as I look here, now all I've done is just wick off here the lowest low I can, and then we actually have the highest highs up here. What I see is a truncated fifth because of the five-wave structure here. So this little wick here taking it higher. I see a double top with technically a truncated fifth as we don't reach that high. But there's a couple of interesting scenarios here. There's two possible counts here that are still contenders here. So if I just take swing low to swing high, and I'm just grabbing this low here, and I go up to my absolute high. Okay, so we can see that. Now, EOS is one of the few cryptocurrencies that in the course of this bear market, so when's our top here? Well, let's see, we'll call this our top is January 13th. It's one of the very few cryptos that has not blown through its 65 on in this long bear market. So it's holding fairly well here. So just from a retracement perspective, swing low to swing high, we're still in an internal retracement. We're still just correcting this entire move up. Now you look here and you go, okay, well, we're in between the 50 and the 618. Well, you could make the case here that you've come back to, would be a common, this is what I want. I've got a common area of support here. In this case would be the 1-2. So we've come back to this longer term support here. That's that's not an unreasonable stance to take. If we play this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, I'm going to propose, because I don't like in between. So you look here and you go, why is it stalling here? Is there something that I'm not seeing or something that I might measure to give me more to think about as to why it's pivoting and holding right here? Now, just because it's holding here today doesn't mean that we don't have a push down here. Then it would be very logical. You can see I've actually got an alert set right there. If we're going to come down and challenge the 618, which is not far away. But, sometimes when you hover here, that can be a precursor to just an accumulation phase before we start up. So remains to be seen. This is not far away, but it seems to be basing here. So we can look at this and go, why here? Right, I don't see any hard pivot here. I'm going to start looking for some evidence to support this. Well, one of the things that I immediately look at when you kind of work backwards in terms of what possibly could be happening here and factoring in the idea that we are still internal here and we're above the 618 in between. Well, here's a scenario that I think has to be considered. I think working from our swing low, again, since I've done this coin, I won't go back through that all. I think it's not unreasonable to look at this scenario, that this is our one, maybe it's here, but 1, 2, and that we go into a 5-wave sequence here, and we actually all that we've done is put in a 3 here. Now, this would be deep for a 4, no question about it. That is deep for a 4, right? If we're going up to new highs. And the symmetry is not ideal, right? So if you look at the length of the ABC here on the assumption that that's the C here, the length here, the proportion is not great. The symmetry that you'd like to see, I mean, ideally, where the symmetry was good was right here, right? And that was a contender at that time, and we came right to the Vegas wave, as I recall, if I put it right on that. We were looking here, right? So you're in between the 23 and the 38 prime zone. All the symmetry was there for that to take a move and head up to the algo target. Well, it just didn't happen, right? So we've rolled over here, but that was where the symmetry was better. So let me take that off now. Is it still possible here? Well, take note of what I've just done here. So if this is our 2 here and I go swing low to swing to what I'm proposing is the 3rd wave high, where are we? Right in the golden zone, right? So now you look at it and go, okay, well, maybe not unreasonable that we're hovering here, and we've been there since the 7th. Well, we've been there for several days now. I'm on a 4-hour here, and we seem to be just holding here. So is this still a candidate here as a pivot here to sustain here, given albeit a very deep 4th? Do we still maintain the potential for this to be completing down here? Now it's a bit of a long shot here because the structure, because of that lack of symmetry here. So, the other count that you might be drawn to right off the bat when you first look at this is that you would have something more akin to this, that this 3rd and 4 would be here, that this would finish here, that this is your 4th. That is, I'm not ignoring that as a possibility. I'm not ignoring it. If that's the case, then again, where I started, then just working, well, algos would use the absolute high. So then we're coming down to approach the 618 here. But if this starts to get traction, I think this secondary count, this kind of long shot alternate that we're putting in a very deep 4th, has to be considered. So, we'll wait and see, if we get any sort of a bounce here. Certainly a function of what's going to happen with Bitcoin as we spread here to Bitcoin. But that's a contender as a long shot for bulls. And as you sit there wondering why we're basing here. So we look in here now. We got to dig in a little bit closer and see if we can come up with anything there that would give us some evidence to support this as potentially a base here that's building before we start heading off to what potentially could be playing this way, where we've got a 3 deep 4, up we go for the 5. It's a contender, bit of a long shot. I acknowledge that. All right, let's dig in here and see if we can learn anything. Well, the first thing that we see here is that if I look at this pivot here, this topping action that we had here, well, I can dig in here. I'm on a 4-hour, and I can dig in. Let's go to. Let me take it down to a 2-hour. We can see this a little bit better. So I can look at this and go, okay, well, so if this is my pivot here, I've probably got a 1, 2, 3. Do we overlap there? Oh, it looks like, look at that. I didn't even see that. Like if that's there as a potential 1 wave, look how do we hold it? Yeah, so we tap it here. Well, we get through here. So we'd have 1, 2, 3. That would hold it there. So potentially you've got this playing this way. You've got a 1, 2, 3 ABC into the 4 down for the 5. Now that degree is all wrong, so let's go down here. So that potentially plays as a completed 5th wave. Do you see this here? So not only is it 5 wave, but it's an impulse because we do not overlap. It holds to the tick. So that's a bit of a tell for me. So we've got a 1, 2, 3 up for the 4, holds, and down we go for the 5. So that would suggest that that would be, if we're starting the correction, that's our A wave. So if we work with that down here, then we get this boom, we get a truncated B wave actually. So we end up with this. So this B moves over here, So we get an A, B, C into the B, and then we come down for the C. Now let me take the wave off that. Don't know that we need that. We can see what's happening here. So this would be my B. This is the lower degree. So I get the A, B, C into the B here. So I get an A, B down into a C because the reason that I sustain that view is because of the 5-wave structure. Let me get this lined up here. So because of that 5-wave structure coming down, 1, 2, 3, albeit the 5th is the longest, but it sustains here because I checked it, so the 3rd is longer than the 1st, so I do get a good ABC. So what do I have there? Okay, that was where, remember we looked at it, where the potential for this, if it was going to go for the 3, 4, all of the ingredients were there. In fact, I think we took this trade. So we had this little impulse down here. We were looking for this to start. It doesn't happen. All right, let's pull back out. Okay, if that's a completed ABC, right, and that, much as it was there set up to be the launching for the 5th, it just doesn't happen, rolls over. So what do we get? We get another 3-wave, and then we've gone much deeper. So that would suggest that we've got a WXY. So we're just connecting to ABC. So I've got a completed ABC here. So working from the top to the bottom here, now I get a 3-wave. Now the X wave is always corrective. So I gotta push lower down here. So that's always corrective. So we're connecting now. We're attempting to connect two ABCs. Does that make sense? Well, the first one's clear as a bell. I can definitely see a nice ABC here. Now if I look at this, I want to start checking here. So if I pull from my pivot high here to my low, well, we come a little shy of the 50. That could be a front run on it. It's just out of curiosity. Check from the B. Well, that's to the 50. But you see here now we had this, they got to their second target reaction at the 1618. Now we're to and through. So I think this is not unreasonable to be labeling this as a W corrective X wave. And now we've gone into this long sell-off here. Now, do we have the potential for this as an ABC? So it's a little bit, you got to look at it and say that, well, what do I see here? So what I see is a 5-wave. So I see this 1, 2, 3. Here's well, does that pivot there? Yeah, it looks like. I guess we'd have to go here, and now we're putting in some sort of 5 down here. Well, does that make sense? Not really, because we wouldn't go. We're at WXY. We're trying to connect two ABCs. So what I get here is a 5. So now I got to rethink that and go, okay, well, what else could be happening? Well, this 3-wave here is certainly a tell, and this 5-wave looks like the trend is running out of steam. That's what you're trying to determine here. Do we have a 5-wave that's completing? Well, so now I got to rethink this. So now I'm going to take this off and go, wait a minute. I know I have this completed ABC pattern here. Well, maybe I've got to look at it this way. So then this starts to make more sense. So now I've got an ABC into my A wave here. Right? So I get an A, B, 5 waves down to my C to complete potentially an A wave. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, you certainly could make a case there that all you've got is a 5-3-5. So you've got the first zigzag into an A wave, right? Remember, it's fractal by nature, so the fact that we get a 5-3-5 into an A wave, that plays better because of what unfolds here, because of this long 5 wave, rather than an ABC. So I would propose to you here that all we've done is go A, shallow B. Granted, it's a shallow B. So if we just look at it, right, it's shallow. Typically, a B is going to get to the 50 at least, but it doesn't get there. So is it a front run? Is the market just so weak? Well, look where we go, right? So swing high to swing low. We've gone right to, so we start looking at that. Well, we know that's going to be very close to the 1618. That's the extreme algo target. So now I back out again and I go, okay, wait a minute. I'm starting to stack some things because I know if I go back to this longer term view, and I work from this is my 2 and this is my 3, now I've got a confluence zone. You see? So all I've done here is just kind of reverse engineer my way into this as a potential support zone. Now, that's a long way to go. If you want to keep it simple, you're back to saying, well, last time it was here, seemed like that was low enough for people and they pushed it up. We're still internal. We're still if I go from swing low, if I don't try and analyze this from an Elliott perspective and just go swing low to swing high, well, here's the 50, here's the 618. I'm bouncing in between. You know, you want to keep it simple. That's not unreasonable to look at it that way. You want to get more sophisticated and try and be more precise in the entry? Well, confluence zone. So we've got the 100, the negative 100, swing low from the A wave projected from the B. Now we're building confluence. Right? That's all we're trying to do. So now if I look at this, I've certainly got a long skinny channel here that's forming. So before, you know, I'm not saying load the boat there, but I'm saying that, you know, if this starts to break, if we start to get signs of strength, damn arrow always gives me trouble. If we start to get signs of strength, we can get through the Vegas wave. Well, we know we're going to have all sorts of resistance to deal with on the way up, right? Because we've got a very clean swing high to swing low. So the 50 and the 618 are going to be there. We can expect reactions. We can expect sellers there. But we're building a little confluence zone down here. Now let's look at the oscillators. Any help here? Well, we could certainly, I'll take this off so you can see this a little bit better. All right, so we can certainly make this case. That with this, so we've had these peaks here. So here was potentially the third, and it just looks like it's running out of gas. So you can make that case that we're getting lower, lower, but the oscillator weaker, in effect getting stronger. So the strength of the downtrend is weakening here by this measure. All right, so let me pull that back. We'll go back here, right? So you can see that. So all leading up to a reasonable area to be maybe, you know, looking at a first entry here, knowing full well that if we break here, that we have the potential to go lower. So if you were looking for buy zone, this is not an unreasonable place to take a first bite at it for the possibility that it starts to move and it leaves you behind. Here's the next zone. So you might look at this and say, well, I start buying here looking for the move, but I would continue to be a buyer down here looking for that move, but I stop out on the other side of the 65, right? So that's my exit. If I'm going to start speculating here, putting capital at risk at this level here, I'm going to continue, just like an algo, I'm going to continue to be a buyer right up to the 618. I'm out on the other side of the 65 because now something else is likely happening. Now, you know, it's just going deeper. So you might have to rethink the entire thing. It's a bit of a long shot playing this as a 4. But based on the strength of the project, all of the variables that we know that are here, the fact that it has not yet broken the 65, the fact that we've got a potential wave count that might suggest that we're at a 4 here, it's an extreme, but it's a contender, right? It doesn't violate any Elliott rules. So if we look at that, that's not an unreasonable place to start, you know, dipping your toe in the water. Right? Stops close by, so there's not a lot of capital at risk. But so I would start small there, maybe a reload here. If you can get this, we can start to get some traction here, we start to move, even if it goes down to the second zone here. We have to be a buyer here. If we start to get some traction, then quickly, because now you'd split the difference here. So you'll be able to tighten up the risk. So your risk is very small on the first entry. You're a little underwater on the second, little traction, and you can tighten it up. You'll be at scratch pretty quickly. Want to be more conservative? You wait for the reaction down here and then you take the first retracement. That's the more conservative on the assumption that we get a hard pivot here, a technical pivot that may be relative to this entire fifth wave structure. So before I leave it, let's go back one more time, dig into that, this last move down, and see if we can get any confluence in terms of the last leg here. So I got to do this so I can move it up. Okay, so let's take this off. Let's take this off. We know that's an area we want to be paying attention to. If there's one more push down, I wouldn't be shocked by that if there's one more push down. Because this doesn't, you know, while we're basing here at this level of support, we don't have the kind of, you know, final push down to complete a fifth. So if this looks much more like we've staggered here. We won two. It looks like there could well be one more down. So if I look here, so that's, you know, that's a bit of an anomaly, but it double tops here. So, you know, yeah, I don't love that. So looking in here, yeah, that doubles. So you, I don't love that. That's a little bit of a problem. So I might look like this, but it technically doesn't take it out. So there's this. So could well be that you've got one more push down here. So if we take that as our 2 down to our 3. Well, here's between the 23 and the 38. That's a contender for the 4th, but we aren't finishing. I mean, it's pretty ugly to call that a diagonal, finishing as a diagonal. So likely there's one more push down there. Yeah, come here. So I might be just working off of some of these pivots, looking for anything else that I can work with. That's a little steep. It gets us just barely through the 6.5. So I would pull back. So you've got a few things to look at there. If that's a 4, there should be one more little push down. Here's our box that we drew. Whether it's a 4, whether it's the C wave and the start of a new trend, all remains to be seen. But my view is that we're closer to the pivot here. If we're not there now, if there's one more push down, we're closer to the buy zone. It's certainly much further away from the sell zone. So a potential loading zone down here, you want to take a little bite at it here on this basing action. I would keep it small because this looks much more likely that there's one more push. Here at the algo target, that's what are we at, 56.339. That's not a bad place to be buying, 56.40, knowing that you've got a pivot down here not too far away. All right, guys, I went long on these today, so I'm going to wrap that up. The only other thing here, you know, if we start to get any traction from this moving up, that would be a sign to maybe get a toe in the water there. All right, that's the work that's required if you want to be precise about that entry. Otherwise, if you loved it at prior zones here, you're going to love it even more as we head down. You know, here's your prior basing area. You know, pick your poison. You know, how do you want to approach the market? Want to be a swing trader? That's the work you got to do. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.